Welcome to the Boxing Gossip channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please subscribe if you have not done so already. Let me start this video by saying had a number of new subscribers join in the past week or so. Subscriber numbers doing really well, so many thanks to everyone who's joined recently. Many thanks of course to those who've been here since day dot. We've got a good mix at the present. I did a video a few days ago where I said that I thought boxing for 2017 was all but done. How wrong I was. We may be at a close in terms of fights for the year, but in terms of boxing news and stories and fights being made, 2017 still seems to have quite a lot of legs left in it. 3 or 4 fights that have been confirmed, and 1 or 2 that we're still working on. You can expect separate videos. One later this evening, Friday the 22nd, on the soon-to-be-made fight between Dillian Whyte and Lucas Browne, and potentially I'll stick something up tomorrow about Anthony Joshua versus Joseph Parker, because that looks like a fight that is very close to being made, and that is of course going to be a mega event. But I wanted in this video to cover 4 particular fights that either have been made or that are pretty much there. Let's start with the one that I believe has not yet been confirmed, but is potentially the biggest of the 4. Deontay Wilder versus Luis Ortiz. It looks like the matchup is on again. Now, no surprise, I guess, to boxing fans who saw Deontay Wilder building up that fight after Luis Ortiz's recent ring return against Daniel Martz. But, you know, it looks like this fight is going to get made. I'm hearing springtime, maybe March 2018. So, you know, good that Deontay Wilder is staying active. Good that Luis Ortiz is staying active. And whatever you think about this fight, with putting aside all the performance-enhancing drugs controversies, putting aside all the uncertainty about Luis Ortiz's age, you know, it still represents a good fight, and it still represents a fight that is going to answer a hell of a lot of questions. Regardless of whether, like me, you think Luis Ortiz may have declined somewhat since his peak performances against Bryant Jennings and Tony Thompson, I think we can categorically say that he will be the most formidable opponent Deontay Wilder will have faced in a professional ring. He very possibly is the hardest puncher Deontay Wilder has faced in a professional ring, and he has a good amount of schooling, a good amount of technique, some real amateur pedigree from that Cuban school of boxing, if you like. And it's going to be an enthralling fight. You know, I've talked about this fight on the channel before. My take has always been that Deontay Wilder has a slight advantage in the fight. He's going to be a considerably bigger man. I believe he's a considerably faster and fresher man. And I think that Luis Ortiz may have problems if Deontay Wilder is able to keep him at range, to get that jab going and to catch him from distance, which I suspect may well happen. Luis Ortiz, he is a threat. And given some of Deontay Wilder's potential defensive openings, a guy with Ortiz's technique and power could be the kind of opponent to find a gap in that defence and be a real test to Deontay Wilder. It's a big question. It's an open question. Right now, I'd be picking Deontay Wilder. I'd actually pick Deontay Wilder by a fair margin as well. I think Ortiz has shown real signs of decline in the last year or two, and I think a further period of inactivity, a further period of aging ever so slightly, you know, when you're Ortiz's age, every couple of months adds another little bit to that clock. I think the chips are stacked against him, but it's a fight I'll be looking to see. And these are 2 guys who are top 5 or 6 in the heavyweight division. Deontay Wilder higher than that, but Luis Ortiz top 5 or 6, and exactly the kind of fight we want to see getting made. So I, for one, am looking forward to it. Sticking with North American action, Danny Garcia is set to return after his March defeat against Keith Thurman. He'll have been out of the ring for nearly 11 months when he steps into the ring with Brandon Rios at the Mandalay Bay Hotel and Casino, Las Vegas. The fight date is 17th of February. That 17th of February, that weekend is a big fight weekend already, people. If you're someone like me who plugs these dates into their mobile phones so they don't double book themselves, make sure you have that weekend blocked out, because 16th of February, we've just had a card announced, which I'm going to come on to later on in this video. 17th of Feb, I believe, is Eubank Groves. Now you've got Danny Garcia, Brandon Rios. So, you know, good fight. Danny Garcia, colourful character, top-class fighter. Very good to see him back in action and, you know, doing what he does best. Danny Garcia, he's had a good career already. He got to 33-0 before fighting Keith Thurman, and he beat names like Robert Guerrero, Paulie Malignaggi, Lamont Peterson, Lucas Matisse, Zab Judah, Eric Morales, Amir Khan. You know, this is a guy who has fought some big name fighters, and you know, whatever you think of his resume, he's a guy who's been in the mix. And at 29 years old, there's still a chance for him to come back to make some waves. And you know, with the welterweight division being as stacked as it is, he's only one fight away from being involved in some pretty blockbuster matchups. As for Brandon Rios, after a knockout loss to Tim Bradley in 2015, he returned mid-2017 and scored a knockout win over Aaron Herrera. He'll go into this fight as a substantial underdog against Danny Garcia. But who knows, potentially Danny Garcia may be best caught after such a long period of inactivity, 11 months. Perhaps, you know, Brandon Rios can make things a bit more interesting given that. Style-wise, I think it matches up well for Danny Garcia. I think Garcia will have some advantages in this fight in terms of technique. And really, I expect levels to show. But it's a key fight for Danny Garcia, and he wouldn't want any slip-ups. He wouldn't want any question marks over the performance in his return fight. Let's switch the pace. Let's talk about UK action. I've already referenced that February the 16th and 17th weekend. Well, February the 16th, David Haye has announced a card at Bethnal Green, York Hall. Joe Joyce will be fighting, presumably headlining the York Hall on a Friday night. Might be a good opportunity for those who believe that Joe Joyce is the truth to catch out someone who's got the potential to be a future world level heavyweight. Obviously Olympic silver medalist fighting in such a small hall. You know, York Hall, for those who haven't been, great viewing experience and good chance to see boxing up close and personal and in the flesh. And you know, Joe Joyce currently listed taking on TBA. I believe the Tom Little fight is rescheduled for the March bill, Haye versus Bellew at the O2. So that will be his third fight. One would presume that his second fight will not be any higher standard than that, you know, given that we're now in late December and this fight is taking place in mid-February. One would presume this will be a durable journeyman gatekeeper type. You know, I don't expect this to necessarily be the same standard as Joyce's debut against Ian Lewison. I actually don't expect it to be the same standard as Joyce's third fight, Tom Little. You're probably looking at an opponent slightly lower level than one of those guys. Potentially we could see him in against the likes of a Dominic Akinlade. I know Akinlade actually beat Little, but maybe a Josh Sandland. You know, one of those type of guys maybe would be interesting to see Joe Joyce in against. And yeah, be very interesting to see. Interesting to check out what broadcaster that fight will be on as well. So if you know the answer to that, leave me a comment in the section below. Good to see Joyce keeping busy though. I was a bit disappointed that he was going to be inactive after the Haye Bellew 1 fight got cancelled. And it's good to see that David Haye has been able to find him another bill and another fight. And that he's simply not sitting on his backside waiting for that Haye Bellew rematch card to get his second fight. So, you know, credit to all involved for that. Presumably some other David Haye prospects will be on the undercard. I don't know if Michael Venom Page will be out. I know Willie Hutchinson's supposed to be out, so that could be a bill worth keeping an eye out for. Finally, last but by certainly no means least, Carl Frampton versus Nonito Donaire. BoxRec has the fight listed 7th of April at the SSE Arena in Belfast. Very much looks like this is the fight that's going to happen, and if it is, I'm going to say a congratulations to Frank Warren. This cannot be a cheap event to put on. Nonito Donaire, big name, you know, a guy who's been involved in big fights in the past. Carl Frampton, big name, one of the biggest ticket sellers in British boxing, someone who's been paid well in the past. I can't imagine that this was a cheap fight to put on. Nonito Donaire, now 35 years old, up at featherweight. He suffered a unanimous decision loss to Jesse Magdaleno in 2016, but scored a unanimous decision win in his only fight in 2017 against Ruben Garcia. So, you know, kind of hard to know what sort of level he's at. Obviously, he lost to Jesse Magdaleno in 2016. You know, prior to that, he lost to Nicholas Walters in 14, the famous Rigondo loss in 13. My suspicion is that he won't be as good a featherweight as he was super bantamweight. you know, or even lower as he's been earlier on in his career. Looking at him, I don't know if he's got the type of game that makes me think he's crying out for a step up. And I think Frampton, potentially, despite some iffy moments in his last fight, I think Frampton is going to be the fresher guy here. So I think, despite Nonito Donaire's name value, and despite the fact that he's been in big fights over the years, I think Carl Frampton starts this fight as a substantial favourite. And I think Frampton will potentially be looking to get a stoppage against Nonito Donaire. But it's a good fight. It's good to see Frampton in against such a highly ranked, highly regarded opponent. And it's the kind of fight that's going to get international recognition and help to build Carl to a position where he's able to get one of those big names in the ring for a sort of the featherweight world title. You know, it looks like, well, now we're on the subject, another fight that looks like it's getting made is Selby Warrington. You know, that fight looks all but done. Frank Warren, you know, giving the indication that that is really about to get done. So if that fight happens for spring, maybe April, May, perhaps Frampton can fight the winner after Nonito Donaire if he comes through victorious against Nonito Donaire. And perhaps you could look at Frampton Selby late summer, and wouldn't that be an exciting fight? We'd all be waiting for that. You know, that would be a hugely exciting fight. So, like what Frank's doing in the featherweight division, Selby Warrington, Frampton versus Nonito Donaire. You've got two exceptional ticket sellers, one in each fight. It's going to build the profiles massively, and the two winners can fight each other for a decent payday. Perhaps the two losers can even get it on. Lots happening in British boxing. Lots of fights being made. Lots of fights about to be made. Stay tuned to the channel. Intention is to get the Dillian White, Lucas Brown video up tonight, so stay tuned if you're interested in that. Otherwise, thanks for tuning in. Leave your comments in the section below. Let me know your thoughts on some of these matchups. If you've enjoyed the content, please hit the thumbs up button. If you're new, you haven't done so before, please press subscribe. Thanks for tuning in.